Welcome to another episode of the series Physics Points to Spirituality. What if something as simple as a pendulum could reveal how your mind really works? If you want to understand your mind better, take a close look at a physical pendulum.
First, let's briefly explain the standard physical view of a pendulum, something many people already know from high school. The pendulum bob is acted upon by the tension of the string, T, and its weight, mg. The net force, the sum of these two, sigma F, changes direction periodically from one side to the other. This net force determines the overall acceleration of the pendulum bob, which always points in the same direction as the net force. However, the velocity of the pendulum bob is along its path of motion. As for the mechanical energy of the pendulum bob, its kinetic energy, Ke, reaches its maximum at the lowest point, the equilibrium position. At this lowest point, the bob has maximum velocity and zero acceleration. The net force acting on it is zero there. On the other hand, the gravitational potential energy, GPE, is at its maximum at the extreme positions, where the displacement is greatest. At these points, the velocity is zero while the acceleration reaches its maximum value. This cycle repeats every period. Kinetic and potential energy continuously transform into each other, and in the absence of friction and air resistance, their total remains constant.
Now, what about our mind? Imagine the extreme positions of the pendulum as two extremes, two poles. For example, whenever you feel infatuation, your mind moves to one side away from equilibrium. But even during that state of infatuation, you are already building energy for hatred. Gradually, infatuation can completely turn into hatred. And as you begin to hate, moving to the opposite side, you are already building energy for the next infatuation. In this way, infatuation and hatred alternate periodically. Have you noticed that lovers sometimes fight, and enemies, deep down, seem to care about each other? Enemies often feel, on some level, that they need one another. Just look at political rivals, how one side depends on the very side it opposes.
The same applies to happiness and unhappiness. Whenever you start feeling happy, observe closely. You may notice that you are already building energy for unhappiness. Eventually, happiness turns into unhappiness. But even as unhappiness grows, you are already building energy for the next moment of happiness. This is how we cycle between positive and negative states. You can also imagine it as a sine wave, up and down, again and again. And you might think that's just how it has to be. Am I right? Let me know in the comments. Your mind is constantly moving from one extreme to another. It only briefly passes through the center, just fleeting glimpses of what the middle state feels like.
And that middle state is completely different. It is a state of balance, inner peace, free from both negativity and positivity. Because the positive only exists in relation to the negative. Even happiness is relative and depends on external circumstances. But there is a deeper state, inner peace and harmony, which is more profound than happiness, more stable and independent of external conditions. To be in this middle state is to truly be. Have you heard of the idea of the middle way? Even Buddha called his path the middle way. He told his followers, "The only thing to be followed is this: always remain in the middle. Don't go to extremes."
People often fall into extremes. More muscle, more money, and so on. And we know how that usually ends. Is it better to have far too much money or almost none at all? Experience shows that the middle is best. Is it better to have a huge house you can't even maintain or a tiny one with no space? Again, the middle tends to be best. And this applies to many things. If you know someone who is completely against sex, now you can understand. They are currently at one extreme, but in the past, they were likely at the opposite extreme. Perhaps they were once obsessed, got exhausted by it, and swung to the other side. Similarly, someone who strongly rejects money may have once been obsessed with it. They realized that extreme wasn't good, but instead of finding balance, they moved to the opposite extreme. A truly balanced person is not against anything, and not attached to anything either. Such a person doesn't label things as strictly good or bad. If you are convinced something is absolutely good or absolutely bad, it simply means you don't yet see the full picture. Buddha also said, just be balanced and everything else will become possible on its own. Just stay in the middle. When your mind is in the middle, it is completely stable, free of tension. In that state, you experience true love. It's up to you how long you want to remain in this balanced state. If it feels boring, it simply means you're not ready for it yet, and you still need to experience the extremes until they wear you out. It's also up to you what kind of oscillations you choose. You can live wildly with large swings, experiencing intense highs and deep lows. Or you can choose a calmer life with smaller swings, less intense happiness, but also less intense suffering. I personally lived in that second mode for many years. It often felt a bit boring, but you are closer to a state of enlightenment. Enlightenment in this analogy means you stop oscillating altogether. You settle into the center. You are neither happy nor unhappy, but instead experience a deep inner peace, which corresponds to the equilibrium position. An ordinary person oscillating quickly with large swings experiences deep calm only for brief moments when passing through equilibrium, but an enlightened person can remain in that equilibrium state for as long as they choose. Enlightened people do not choose between opposites. They let the opposites come together and become complementary. They let them dissolve into each other. They let the infatuation and hate cancel each other. They are choiceless. They are aware, but they do not choose. They don't say this is good, and they don't say that is bad. Do you really know what is good and what is bad? Do you have the whole picture? Whenever you say this is beautiful, you have already condemned something as ugly. In the choicelessness, you will be balanced. The next time you see a pendulum, you might realize you're not just looking at physics anymore. You're looking at your own mind, and you'll never see it the same way again. And what about damping caused by friction and resistive forces? We can think of these as so-called obstacles in our lives. They're a natural part of life and tend to push us toward equilibrium.